Good evening from Nairobi, Kenya. From wherever you're receiving this from, welcome to this special webinar to unpack the UNESCO report. We are glad you're here. We'll take just a few minutes to wait for our speaker to join us on. Meanwhile, we could be introducing ourselves on the chat. Maybe you can put in your name and the country that you're listening us from, and the name of your company. Welcome. And if you can turn on your video, that would be amazing, so that we can get to see each other. If you're in a position to, that would be great. So welcome everyone again, for those who are joining us. We are glad to be here at the special webinar hosted by Africa Speaks, the network of Christian publishers here in Africa. And we are glad that you have come so that we can all listen to Sir BUMA KOR as he helps us to unpack the recently released UNESCO report. For the sake of just knowing one another, I welcome you just to introduce us, your name. You can put in your name, the country you're listening from, and maybe the publishing house you are from. Great. Welcome, everyone. I think that's what we're doing at the moment. You can put that in the chat, messaging chat. So that will give us just 2 minutes, and then we will start. Oh, so it's a joy to see old friends logging in. Thank you, Jeremy, formerly with Oasis International. Seku from Sindriku from Oasis Distributors, Nigeria, welcome. Christo from Uganda, welcome. Colette Owens, I hope I pronounced that well. Digital Publishing on Gospel Coalition Africa, welcome. Harriet Owala from People's Daily, oh, amazing, welcome. We are all delighted to be here. I think that Mbugwe, do we have BUMA KOR on the call? I can't see him.
Okay.
I think he's having challenges logging on. Could you check whether he's with us? So this call will be recorded. We will later host it on YouTube. So if you miss anything, I think we will later on upload it on our YouTube page. And also we will repeat this fully in French on 2 weeks from now, on the 15th of July, we will have a repeat of the same webinar to our French community. Same time on a Tuesday, 6 p.m., that is East African time, and you'll host it for 2 hours. Bogo, you're finally with BUMA KOR, waiting for BUMA KOR to join us to have a go.
Okay. He's joining us in a few.
Okay, great. Could you put our screen, our presentation on? Maybe I can be introducing Africa Speaks for those who are already here. For those who are joining us, kindly do put in your name on the chat box, the name of your country and the publishing house you are part of. We'll be glad to welcome all of us. Usman Oladipo from the Association of Nigerian Authors, welcome. Glad to host you here at Africa Speaks. Bogo, kindly share with me the screen on Africa Speaks. So Africa Speaks, we are the host of this special webinar. We are the network of Christian publishers here in Africa. And next slide, Mbogo. And our goal is to see a flourishing Christian publishing industry on the continent. We are totally delighted to have you here this evening. Our goal is to see how do we coordinate our different efforts across the continent, and how do we see all of our engagements and ministries towards building the kingdom of God in Africa. So one of the initiatives we have is that we have a website where we consolidate and get to know each other. We will later on show you at the very end how we are building community so that we can know who is where doing what, and that helps to build collaboration, giving us a comprehensive database of Christian publishing professionals across the continent, so that from whichever country you're from, it becomes easier for you to collaborate with another publishing professional from another country. So that's part of it. And the other part of it is for us to get to interact with one another. So Bogwa, is BUMA KOR with us now?
Hello, just to check, my name is Todd Coupe from South Africa. Whether my name is appearing on the screen?
Yes,
you can
are
put your
appearing,
name.
Todd.
Wonderful. And kindly put it also on the chat. I think that would be great for us to know one another as we are serving God through publishing in Africa. Bugwa, you can place for me the introduction part for BUMA KOR. I can place an introduction for BUMA KOR.
I'll call his attention. I wasn't, perhaps I didn't note it. Surely he was supposed to.
I think we can also kindly mute so that we don't have echo on the call. Oh, good. I can see he's coming on. He's coming on.
Yeah.
Sorry that he had a challenge. So we are going to have this webinar in 3 parts. So the first part, we are going to listen to BUMA KOR unpacking the report, and he will basically guide us through to understand its objectives, the research methodology, and help us to know how to consume the report. So that will be the first part, him introducing the report to us and helping us understand its relevance to Christian publishing. Thereafter, we are going to have a guided interview where we are also going to bring on board Lily Nyariki to respond now to the questions I'm going to field to them in kind of a guided way so that we can all have a conversation with them, making citations of different parts of the research. Then the third portion of this special webinar will be to do a Q&A, where now all the questions that you are having will be captured. So we hope to finish at that is 17 hours GMT, which will be 7 p.m. here in Nairobi, East African time. I'm not so sure what that will be at your time zone, but we hope to finish on the dot for that. So allow me to introduce our speaker, our first for the first session, BUMA KOR Dickson. He served on the UNESCO writing and research team for the transversal regional analysis. He is a veteran Cameroonian book publisher and a publishing development consultant based in Yaoundé, Cameroon. And with over 40 years of experience, he has played a key role in shaping Africa's publishing landscape. BUMA KOR taught publishing and management for 20 years at the University of Yaoundé, and also holds a master's in publishing management from Oxford Brookes University, and has been involved in training writers and journalists across Africa. He's also a former president of Sokiladra, a member of APEC, and has contributed to the West African Pilot and African Magazine. So we would like to welcome you, Sir BUMA KOR, to introduce to us the UNESCO report. Welcome, sir. Sir BUMA KOR?
I am on. Are you getting me?
Great. Take it away. We can hear you very well.
Are you getting? I am on.
Yes, you are.
Hello. Are you getting me? I am on.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Hello. Are you getting me? I am on.
Yes, we are. Can you? I hope everyone else can hear BUMA KOR.
You are getting me? I am on.
Yes, we can hear you.
I can hear. Is he unmuted?
Okay. Okay. So I was saying thank you very much, Mr. Gatuku, and your Africa Speak team for inviting me to your event, this important event. Now, as an introduction, I would say that the report I am going to present is the latest definitive report by UNESCO on the African book industry, trends, challenges, and opportunities for growth. It has been described variously as a monumental work, a landmark publication, a snapshot, and the latest comprehensive mapping of Africa's publishing landscape. The objective of the report has been to inform policymakers, government authorities, and book professionals of the present state of the book industry in Africa. What are the present trends and challenges, and how they could be addressed, since such a study was done more than 30 years or so ago by different bodies. The difference this time is that it is UNESCO undertaking the study. Now you will see that the recommendations in the study point to what could be done to respond to the challenges at various levels, governmental, at industry professional level, and at individual levels, that is, at the level of publishers, booksellers, and other stakeholders. I would say that this is a cumulative work, participatory, That is, other people had been involved in collecting the primary data through a qualitative survey by questionnaire sent to all 54 countries that make up the member states of UNESCO in Africa. We came in at the most crucial stage, compiling the data collected from the 54 countries, analyzing and researching the gaps, and writing the transversal report by country and by regions. And finally, writing the final report, which was mainly done by our lead team, Madame Elita van der Sade, supported by Lily Nyariki and myself, BUMA KOR, as researchers and co-writers. Other editorial team members included Isabel Delval, Rosie Katz, and Carmen Tong. The study was commissioned by UNESCO in June 2024, and national authorities and industry stakeholders responded to it with their qualitative responses. It focused on data from 2023 with some data collected for 2021 and 2022. It achieved a 90% response according to the organizers from national authorities as well as multiple industry stakeholders such as publishers, booksellers, and librarians across the continent. They also responded to it. The way we can look at this report is like a government white paper, but with a difference in that industry professionals have also been consulted. When we'll be talking about the limitations of the report, we will then mention specifics. May I also inform you that this work is in a series on understanding the African cultural and creative industries. The first report that was done in this series was in 2021, which is the African film industry. And this report we are talking about, the African book industry, carefully followed structurally this film industry report, but it's a unique work on its own. You can find this report at the website http://unesdoc.unesco.org. The second is on the African fashion sector and was published in 2023 and can also be obtained from this same open access site, which I just mentioned above. We are encouraged to get access of it and own copies. I hope you are getting me. It is important for us to know that this African book industry report, just launched by UNESCO on the 18th of June 2025, is a baseline report aimed at informing policy makers and stakeholders to build upon. It maps out structural trends, identifies key constraints in the industry, and presents strategic recommendations to advance the industry's capacity for sustainable growth. It is an invitation to policymakers, publishers, authors, booksellers, and librarians to come together for continental action, to push for national legal frameworks, investing in local infrastructure, supporting public reading spaces, and promoting inter-African trade, which are critical in unlocking the sector's potential for growth. Yes? Are you getting me? Well, I continue.
Yes, carry on.
With targeted policies and sustained collaboration, the report insists, and I quote, Africa's book industry can emerge as a driver of economic development, literacy, and cultural empowerment across the continent, unquote. The remarkable thing about this UNESCO report is the startling revelations it makes that the book industry in Africa, and I quote again, accounted for 5.4% of global publishing market in 2023, generating approximately $7 billion, 7 billion in revenue annually. This is why, based on approximate measures and policies that can be put in place, the continent's book industry is poised to see market opportunities of up to 18.5 billion US dollars in the coming years, with educational publishing alone representing a possible $13 billion USA. So now, here are sections of the report that will also be relevant to Christian publishers and other communicators. One, I have already mentioned the section on trends, which I said would enable us to understand what is happening in our industry and help us know what to do and the precautions and or directions we can take. We must not work in isolation. I mean, Christian publishers. We are in the same boat with secular publishers, and we either sink or rise together. The second section of the report is about the challenges we face in the African book industry, common to both secular and Christian publishing. Understanding this section will give us reasons to work together to overcome our common difficulties. For instance, to put in place relevant policies and support measures and incentives to boost our work, or reliance on massive importation of books that undermine our capacity to grow our industry, or overcoming the difficulties in access to books and reading, are not issues to handle in isolation. We must work together to achieve this, and Christian publishers and writers must be part of the solution. Now, the third section or part of the report is one that particularly warms my heart, as I have been directly involved in it as a passionate player for 50 years. It is about the strategic opportunities that abound in growing our publishing industry in Africa if we work together to provide leadership and a helping hand as professionals and skilled workers. For the opportunity we have working together in putting in place national book policy in our respective countries and establishing a National Book Development Council to help implement the national book policy and coordinate the activities that go to facilitate the growth of the industry are all in our power to do so if we collaborate to overcome the challenges enumerated in the report. For instance, building a strong domestic market for local publishers to thrive and providing access to books of our writers and promoting reading habits are imperatives that require collaboration and commitment. But we should finance it. Our countries should finance it from public funds. Our book industries should finance it with their own funds, even though we have pointed assistance, we may have pointed assistance from bilateral, regional, or international bodies. So depending on aid will not help us, and running budgets with other people's money isn't going to help us. I am sure most of our members will understand what I mean. So I wish to particularly call on Christian communicators to be the solution to put in practice the results of this report. They can be the solution by helping to put in place professional book organizations or associations, such as writers, publishers organization, booksellers association in respective countries or communities. If you want help in knowing how to go about this, I am available to advise and assist you in this regard. The rest of the report, the very essence of it, is the national and sub-regional mappings, which are snapshots of the publishing situation in our respective countries and regions. These mappings help us to know our situations and see where we can provide healing collectively and individually in our ministries. You wouldn't find this section of the report in the printed version of this report, but on the online version. Our sister Lily Nyariki, a bookseller and reputed librarian herself from Kenya, will present to us this important last section of the report. Now, as far as the credibility of the report goes, you must take it as any government white paper, as I said, with the exception that professionals and experts in the book development were consulted and projections made in figures and trends used, some scientific method to arrive at, corroborated by expert observations in the field. It may not be 100% accurate, but it is a working document to rely on. As of now, we do not have anything like this. Let me also say how useful this report is to our work as publishers, editors, writers, booksellers, librarians, and other stakeholders in the book industry, and especially for us Christian communicators. This is a fundamental tool of reference and consultation to help publishing professionals be informed, be abreast with current goings-on, and understand what thrives within the evolving African book ecosystem in our countries or regions. And especially for Christian writers and publishers, we should not see our work as parochial to our respective missions or ministries, but as contributions we are making to transform the world around us. Since this is God's work and God's world, we should partake in it purposefully decisively and strategically with other secular stakeholders to bring about sustainability in our scope of work. This report is particularly useful in understanding the industry we work in globally, especially the trends that are ever evolving in the book ecosystem. We understand by the figures presented what market share Christian publishing and book selling can attain if we compute this knowledge in our context. It becomes a driving force for us to know that our work is part of the growing publishing industry in Africa. As a management tool, this report helps strategically place Christian publishing as a niche to the vigorous pursuit with the same enthusiasm that secular publishers, writers, and booksellers put into growing their work. We must not relent because we have a part to play in growing the publishing industry nationally and continentally as part of the work we do working in the Lord's vineyard. And as a marketing tool, the report enables us to assess our marketing options in terms of scope and direction, depending on our particular Christian genre. We are informed through this report of the areas of concentration or priority in production and marketing, in the choice of subjects or titles we produce, taking into consideration where we are and where we want to reach. This report calls us to action as partakers in the building of the local publishing industry. We should join hands with secular publishers to provide the framework for growth as members of local publishers associations, local writers guilds, or booksellers and library association members. We, as Christian publishers, should not stand by and watch. We should be part of the movers of the local publishing infrastructure in our communities. Where there is none, we should start one, and together we can draw attention to change or lobby for policies and incentives that favor our work, for together we stand. I thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, BUMA KOR, for introducing the report to us. Ladies and gentlemen, that was BUMA KOR. For those who have joined us when he's already done introducing the UNESCO report. Thank you now for giving us opportunity now to engage this to the next level. We are going to go now into the second section of this webinar, where I'm going to bring on board Lily Nyariki now to be alongside BUMA KOR to respond to the questions. Lily Nyariki is a veteran in the fields of publishing, literacy, and policy development with over 30 years of experience. She holds degrees in literature, librarianship, mass communication from the University of Nairobi and Leeds Metropolitan University. She has worked with leading organizations such as UNESCO, UNICEF, ADEA, USAID, championing book development and national reading policies across Africa. Most recently, she supported the development of the Malawi's national book and reading policy. She's based in Eldoret and is the founder and CEO of AfriReads Company Limited, a bookshop dedicated to promoting a reading culture among people. So I'd like to welcome Lily now to join together with BUMA KOR. Lily, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mbuga.
Yes, I think I should have also mentioned that both Lily and BUMA KOR, as much as they have made their contribution at the UNESCO level on the broader publishing industry, they are at their own personal level believers and engaged actively in Christian publishing at their own in their own nations. And so we are glad to have them here because now they can give us very good perspectives on how should we interpret and unpack this and to see how does this further the mission of God on the continent of Africa. Okay, great. Welcome, Lily. Anything you'd like to say as introductory remark? What did this research mean for you?
It meant a lot because, as you've already said, I've been in this space publishing, literacy development, reading promotion for so long. I've had the opportunity to attend so many forums on book development in Africa, but for many years, there was nothing major that was happening in the book publishing scene. And so for me, I think the idea that UNESCO came up with mapping the book industry in Africa gave me a lot of hope. And I do have a lot of hope that moving forward, we can pick up some of the recommendations that were made so that we are able to move this very important sector of our economy as in support of education, in support of knowledge, in support of...
Sorry, Mbugo, could you mute everyone else? Sorry for that.
So I was saying that for me, I think it's up to us because I'm so glad, by the way, that Africa Speaks picked this up, because then it shows there are people who are interested in this sector just as much as some of us are. And so for me, it was really like some kind of a lifeline for the African book sector. So I would also want to say that I'm not a publisher per se. I've been in the publishing scene in many wearing different hats, but basically I run a bookshop in Eldoret, and I can proudly say that about almost a quarter or a third of my merchandise are Christian materials, be they books, motivational books, Bibles, children's books, gifts, Christian gifts, and things like that. So I'm very much at home with this community. And moving forward, I would very much want to be part and parcel of you people.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Tell us what were some of the insights that you personally picked up, having been in the industry for a long. What are some of the things you noticed that really popped out for you as something that we should take note of?
Okay, so the fact that the African book industry has so much potential. And why I say potential, there are so many young people involved in the book industry. There's so many young authors, so many young people who are involved in literary festivals and things like that. Just, keeping the African book industry alive, which of course, I must admit that I wasn't quite aware that there were these many activities that were going on in Kenya, in Uganda, and in Nigeria, Mauritius, Madagascar, name it. I realized that, in fact, there's so many people, like Elijah, I think it was Elijah who thought he was alone as a prophet. I thought perhaps there are not so many people involved in this industry and showing a lot of energy and doing all kinds of activities that really support the development of the African publishing sector. And so for me, that was an insight that I value. The other one, of course, is the fact that there are so many also professional associations that have been formed over the years. We may not have known about them had we not gone on to this study. So I think for me, that also stood out. And the fact that the governments are also, in certain countries, especially Mauritius, Madagascar, Egypt, they are very much into supporting publishing in those countries, which of course then form a very good model for us to follow. If only our governments could give more support. I think for now, let me stop there. Perhaps BUMA KOR has something else to say. But for me, I think those are things that stood out.
What about you, BUMA KOR? What are some of the things that really have changed over the last maybe 30 years of your participation in the industry?
Well, yeah. Let me just give my impression about the insights. When I was involved in this research, it was an opportunity for me to serve and to learn, because we have been waiting for a very long time what should happen in the book industry, and thought that once this was, we had the opportunity to really do something, because we found that it was something worth doing. As my insight, I thought contributing to the research would help me understand even much more what is happening today in the industry, and to see how we can help to guide it. So, yes, the book industry in Africa has not changed very much since the 60s. Even though we may have individual countries that have done very well, or some individual companies that have also done very well. But globally, when we look at the potential that the industry is supposed to evoke, not much has changed since 1960. So this report, bringing this report out, was very helpful for us, so that we can take off from here, from the recommendations that we have had.
Thank you. In terms of consuming the report, what are some of the, what you would call like the data points, the trends that we should take close note of, Lily, that would help us, especially in the, I see the way you've structured the report, both in terms of in the challenges, the opportunities, the strategies, and later on talks about the regional mappings, and then country by country. What are some of those things that you would like Christian publishers to take note of as data points to take to observe?
Well, for me, I would say that the very fact that there was this major projection that was made by UNESCO, that, given everything going right, all the support that is required by the government, we can, generate billions and billions of dollars. I think that is one of the key data that we should be able to take home. I think we're talking of about 18.5 billion. That is something that we should focus on, because I want to say that given statistics that come out of other regions, like, say, for instance, Britain, they had a recent report that came out and showed that they make so much money from the book industry. And so people must learn that there is wealth in knowledge creation and knowledge production. So that is one thing people must focus on. We must also focus on the fact that the educational sector, which apparently produces of almost 90% of the revenue, educational income, is something to watch out for. And I think BUMA KOR earlier on sort of alluded to it, that we as Christian workers in the sector should know how to go around that particular sector, and know that, look, if we are really looking to develop and make money and make impact, because where else can we make impact if not in the education sector? In terms of even the values that are supposed to be passed on to our children. So we need to look at those data sets, especially, as I've already said, the overall capability of the book industry and the education sector. Those are a must. And I would also want to add that, in fact, the history of publishing in Africa sort of is derived from missionaries. It is missionaries who started publishing in Africa. So I don't know. There isn't much to speak about, I think, generally speaking. I mean, let me use an example of Kenya, for instance. We used to have very active Christian publishers like Uzima Press and others, but I don't hear of them anymore. They don't even feature in the educational sector, for instance. They don't produce anything that is recommended in the school system. So those are some of the things that Christian publishers need to look at and ensure that they begin to look for ways and means of participating generally in the book industry, especially in the educational market, so that they're able also to benefit from what accrues economically.
One of the things that I observed from the report was that 70% of the entire market goes to, or rather the share of the 18.5 billion projected by UNESCO is attributed to educational publishing. I'm not so sure how many Christian publishers have a foot in educational publishing. Apart from, I think I have seen our brother Yohane from Malawi claim a buku, who also sits on the AppNet board. Maybe he will tell us about it later on when we open this for Q&A. But would you want to speak into that? What role do you think we can play? What information can we have in order to tap into this kind of wider income, even to support what many Christian publishers are already doing? Because our schools do need Christian education textbooks, resources. Who are publishing these textbooks for CRE, religious books, Bible knowledge? Who are the publishers doing this work? The Bibles that are being distributed in our schools. Yeah, I can see Lily wants to respond to that.
Yes, I think you're bringing a very important aspect, because you find that the mainstream publishers, like, say, for instance, in the case of Kenya Literature Bureau, or Longhorn Publishers, or East African Education Publishers, they're the ones who do the religious texts. And so, for me, that's a contradiction. It should have been the Christian publishers doing that, in my view. And what I would propose is that I think Christian publishers need to work closely with the curriculum development centers, so that they're able to understand what is required in schools, and therefore then they're able to commission Christian writers to write manuscripts that can be vetted by the curriculum institutes, so that they're also able to be recommended, because that's what happens. Your manuscript has to be recommended by the curriculum development centers in order for it to go into the school market. So that's a challenge. I don't know to what extent Christian publishers even try or work through government departments like the curriculum development centers, for example, or Ministry of Education for that matter, to ensure that they are also part and parcel of this lucrative book market. So yes, they need to get to know what is happening with the curriculum and what the curriculum centers want, and therefore then get into it. Yeah.
Great. So I think we will pack that question and that entire area. We will come back to it on Q&A, and we are going to think about, is this a conversation that we as Christian publishers need to have, and even have some among us who are already giving a leadership to help us process this. The other issue I want to dive into is the disparity between Northern Africa and the rest of Sub-Saharan Africa. When I looked at the research, countries like Equatorial Guinea have only one bookstore and 2 publishing houses. I think that made my heart sink. When you look at Northern Africa, they are leading in almost every count with almost, I think, over 4,000 publishing houses. Would you want to speak into that disparity? Because sometimes you could be celebrating, but now when it comes to the expression of faith, in the Northern Africa, we would say we have minority believers, and in the Sub-Saharan Africa, where we have majority Christians, is where the figures are on the lower side. Do you want to speak into that in BUMA KOR? Oh, unmute. Sorry, you're muted, Sir BUMA KOR.
Sorry. Okay, fine. Sorry. Thank you. I think the disparities you have noticed is very clear in the report, but Lily will talk much about it in this area. Let me leave her to talk much about this.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, BUMA KOR. I think you're so right, and in bringing this correlation between the faith-based publishing in the Northern Africa. It's so interesting because what is happening there, Egypt has tapped the entire Arab world, which of course is basically Islam. And therefore, they have a wide market. And because they know that, they have taken full advantage of producing not only faith-based materials, but also mainly educational. And for us, for Christian publishers, I think that's a big takeaway that you need to have at the back of your minds. The fact that missionaries in Africa started publishing, and somehow we lost the trend. We need to get back, because this is exactly what is happening with North Africa. And of course, what is also notable about North Africa is that the government of Egypt is very much involved in supporting publishing there. Not only just publishing, but even supporting libraries and basically book distribution, which of course is a big problem in most of the other countries. So I'm glad you're bringing that up, because I think that's a critical point to note, that Egypt has basically thrived. And of course, as you are right, it is true in the report, it leads in almost every sector or every indicator rather. And the reason is because I think they learned very earlier on that they needed to have this synergy of their faith-based whatever, support that they have from other Arab-speaking countries. And therefore, perhaps even for us, in East Africa, for instance, and some of Central Africa, we have people who speak Kiswahili. So why can't we leverage, for instance, Kiswahili language materials? We need to think that way. We need to think also of regions like West Africa, where there are large speakers of, say, Hausa or Yoruba across borders. Why can't we, want also to leverage that kind of opportunity to produce materials? The trouble is, I think BUMA KOR mentioned earlier, is that we have lacked support from the government, policy support from the governments. And, some of us who have been there for very long, this is what we've been saying. We need to have cross-border trade. And how do you facilitate cross-border trade? You have to have policies in place to support that. We now have the economic, we have the
Where is he?
Who?
Isaac.
Oh, sorry.
Probably with
Google,
the
help,
finance manager.
help me to mute people. Kindly mute if you're not speaking. Thank you. Carry on, Lily.
Yeah, so I was saying that we have these regional markets these days, and the key trade trade agreement that was recently adopted by the Africa Union. Why can't we as Africans take up such opportunities and run away with them, so that now we free ourselves from all these barriers? Because as you see, even from the challenges that we are talking about, is we are not able to trade with each other. We're not able to publish in languages that people speak or need to read in. And so we've created a lot of barriers for ourselves. Whereas elsewhere, like in the Northern African region, they have understood these issues and they have, known how to go around them. I think that's what I would say for now. Yeah.
And I think the shocking thing for me was the fact that the literacy levels between the regions does not have a very high variance. Northern Africa has 77%. Southern Africa has 79%. But even though that Southern Africa has a higher literacy rate, they only have 435 publishing houses compared with 4,197 publishing houses in Northern Africa. So Northern Africa has a lower literacy rate, yet has 10 times number of publishing houses. When you think about the titles published, this is from page number 55. The Northern Africa has 40,370 titles published in 2023. Eastern Africa, for instance, is at a quarter of that, at 9,320. So this disparity is quite huge, meaning the amount of investment made into developing the entire publishing industry is huge. And when you're talking about Northern Africa, we're not talking about many countries. We're talking about 6 countries only: Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Mauritania, Morocco, and Tunisia. When you talk about East Africa, you're bringing in almost more than 10 countries. You're talking about Comoros, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Madagascar, Mauritius, Rwanda, Seychelles, Somalia, Southern Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania combined. So we are now starting to provoke the believers to see the gap that there is and the level of investments we need to start considering if we are truly to develop a Christian publishing industry on the continent. Let me also ask you in terms of, before I leave that regional mapping.
May I just add?
Yes.
May I just add, please? When you talk about Northern Africa, you would notice that Egypt is the hub of publishing in the Arab world. So most of the books you are mentioning there are not only for the North African zone, but across the Arab world. So this number of books you are talking, yes, this number of books you are talking is not only for Northern Africa, but it's across the Arab world. I remember.
Oh, sorry.
When created, the book center was created and placed in Northern Africa, that is in Egypt. That's one of the concentration. Most of the books, most of our impact at the book center, the regional book center for Africa, was in Egypt, but across board, across the Arab world. So you should take into consideration that my interest would be, just as you said, that we should be able to, and this is what we should emphasize, that for so long, Christian publishing has been, Christian publishers have been working singly. They have not united. Do we have Christian Publishers Associations? Do we have Christian Booksellers Associations? Or even if you look at the National Publishers Associations, how many Christian publishers are in those associations? It is something we should, this report should help us wake up. I think it's an eye-opener for us, for Christian publishers to read, so that it will give us insights into those aspects that we really need to develop, but especially that we should call our brothers and sisters involved in Christian publishing, bookselling, and librarianship to engage with others so that we can unite to, because this question of book policy is not question for only other people. We are included. We should be involved, just as I said in my introduction. We should be, Christian publishers should be involved. They should not sit backward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Allow me now to move to something else also. What are some of the myths or things that are previously held about publishing in Africa that was either demystified or challenged by this report? And either of you can respond to that.
Please, can you just...
I am not getting you very well because it's cracking.
Oh, sorry, it's cracking. I'm asking, are there any assumptions that have been held historically about publishing in Africa that have been challenged by this report?
I don't think so. But I think there are pleasant surprises in the report that gives us reason to hope for better days ahead, because the recommendations that you find can be immediately put into practice. But as Lily mentioned earlier, and I've also mentioned it, the dollar figures of the African book publishing market is huge. It's something we never thought that we can go that much. So it is something attainable, and I think we can be able to work together to reach that level of economic growth in publishing.
Okay, interesting.
I think for me, I would say that the digital revolution, I think people didn't quite understand that in fact a lot is happening regarding the digital revolution in Africa, especially the use of apps, because we realize that in countries like say Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Egypt, young people are really into reading digitally. And, you know, it's something that is pleasant, something that perhaps it should be, commended. Although, of course, we know there are also considerations of negative considerations, related to reading digitally. But that is something that I think for me stood out. The other thing, of course, that the assumption that perhaps governments do not quite support publishing. We were quite pleasantly surprised that Mauritius, for instance, is very intentional. South Africa also is very intentional. Ghana also is fairly intentional in their support to the publishing sector. And I think those are some of the areas that perhaps moving forward, we need to know, how do we speak to our governments to understand that publishing, in fact, is one of the most lucrative economic activities that any government can can engage in, especially given the fact that it's not only about the economics, it's also about the cultural identity, the cultural affinity of our people. So we need to look at those issues, I think, especially as Christian publishers, and perhaps begin to know how best do we talk to governments. Yeah, because I think for me that is one of the weakest areas that I find has helped stagnate publishing in Africa. People in government don't seem to understand the importance of publishing. Economically, culturally, educationally, they don't just seem to understand that.
The need for advocacy towards the government. And I think that will also begin when Christians are also part of the publishing associations at the country level. I think that helps us to channel our advocacy through those associations. And I think we will come back to that. I was glad to see that David Wawero was also part of this, and a number of other individuals I know who have also not only been Christian believers, but also participated in championing for the book publishing industry to governments. Allow me to also highlight for you, there are certain other programs, book fairs, festivals, that this report highlights. One of them is the Canex Book Factory, in the partnership with African Export-Import Bank, putting in certain interesting programs that maybe a number of Christian publishers here are not aware of. And are there any initiatives and resources that have been availed within the wider ecosystem that Christian believers could take advantage of in terms of upskilling? Oh, sorry, either of you could respond to that in terms of the Canex Book Factory.
Okay, Lily first.
Okay, so I think perhaps that's where we are very we lag behind in that area. In my view, we don't seem to how shall I put it? We don't seem to understand the importance of creating synergy among ourselves, and therefore then, although there are those initiatives like the Canex, which of course is very commendable, but it perhaps is the only one. I'm not so sure whether there's any other, although perhaps I should mention that currently our team leader, Elitha, is involved with another study that is being done by the African Development Bank. So I don't know whether any one of you knows about it, but perhaps we need to ensure that Pan-African initiatives are created or are established, especially among the faith-based publishers, just so that we take advantage of the talent, the creativity, the opportunities that there are in the market. Because I can tell you, as a bookseller, I've been a bookseller within the university systems, but I've been a bookseller for my own shop for the last 4 years. And I can tell you that Christian literature sells. In fact, for me, I can tell you without any doubt that Christian literature, Christian children books sell in my shop. Parents will always come looking for such materials. So I think for me, the challenge is who is bringing this sort of force so that we can have much, much more happening that will go on to creating this synergy that is required, be it through bookshops. And of course, for me, I would recommend that we have a distribution system that works, because then, we can talk of literary festivals, we can talk of publishing, but if we don't have the books reaching to the people that need them, then perhaps then we are also not getting the benefit that we expect from the book industry. Because once a writer writes a book, surely they don't write it for themselves. They write it for a prospective reader. And therefore, we need to have these distribution networks, either through literary festivals, through bookshops, whatever other forums that ensure that books get to the people that need them. School libraries, public libraries, and the like.
Okay. Thank you so much. I feel like I would like to, or you wanted to say something, BUMA KOR? I wanted to switch now to have an opening so that our participants this evening could field their questions to you. We are unpacking the African Book Industry Report done by UNESCO, which was released not too, I think 2 weeks ago. That was on the
18th of June.
Of June?
18th of June.
18th of June in
This
Paris,
year.
France. Is that took place in Paris, France?
Yes.
That was an interesting choice of location. And so
anyway,
I would like to.
UNESCO is based in Paris.
Okay, on their headquarters. I thought they would have given us the honors of launching it here on the continent. But
I think it's
great.
It's a pipeline.
Okay. So I would like to welcome your questions. Please, you can write them on the chat, or you can lift up your hand. I'll see it, and then you will get to unmute and ask your question. You can field it to one of our panelists. We have both Lily Nyariki and BUMA KOR from Cameroon. Lily Nyariki is from Nairobi. She's a CEO and founder of AfriReads, a bookseller, but has also been involved in UNESCO in the area of book policy development. And BUMA KOR is a veteran publisher based out of Cameroon. And so they are here. They participated as both the writers and researchers for that report. And so we are glad that they are here to unpack the report for us. So kind of feel free to field your questions so that we could engage. Now that I see that the CEO for Claim Mabuku is here, and there's a question from Uganda. Christo Butanje asks, the seemingly high level of corruption in educational publishing discourages Christian publishers. How have Christian publishers in the education sector navigated this? Jean-Paul Johanne, would you like to pick that one for us? And welcome.
Thank you so much, Gatuku. And hello, everyone, our panelists. I'm glad to join, though I joined a bit late, but I have followed. And it's interesting that we have to look at these findings in the perspective of developing the Christian publishing or Christian book selling. And as Malawi, we really are interested to learn a lot from this report. And I just wanted to say something about participating in the educational publishing as a Christian publisher. Well, Claim Mabuku, at some time we were trying to reflect on the history, how we started participating in the educational sector. It is a long time ago, around 1973, 1975, so long time ago, because Claim Mabuku was established in 1968. The mandate was to ensure that, Christians.
What does Claim Mabuku stand for, the acronym?
Claim is Christian Literature Action in Malawi. Christian Literature Action in Malawi. Yeah, so but initially it used to be called Christian Literature Association, but When it was registered as a limited company, the government said, no, you can't register it as an association because now it's a private company. So we just changed the word association to action. But you see, we normally call it claim limited these days because we wanted it to give, to give a kind of belonging to each and every beneficiary of the literature, educational as well as Christian. So maybe I would go straight to the point. Our participation in the educational sector started way back around 70s when we developed some series that were being used in the secondary schools, in the schools. It was called the Ukani series. Ukani means rise, arise, some kind of, So, but then moving on to the 90s and the 2000s, now, Christian publish reached a point of survival, I would say, so that we could not sustain ourselves by simply selling the Christian publications. Looking at the demands in printing and operations and all that. And I must mention that initially, claim was being run by expatriates. So when it was handed over to Malawians, so we had to begin to stand on our own. So, but then the idea of participating more in Christian, in educational publishing, for us to convince our shareholders and the churches that are the owners of claim, we had to give this reason that the idea is that because there is the money in the educational publishing, then when we get that money, we use it to support publishing of Christian literature. You see, that's the idea. It's like there is a feeding relationship. The educational publishing has got more returns. Now, but when you look at the market of the Christian literature, I think in my country, there is a mentality which we are trying to work on, of course, where people used to believe that they have to be given handouts like free of charge, free Bibles, free hymn books. And so they would depend on someone from the West to buy these products and then distribute them for free to the people that use them. So that really affected the uptake of Christian literature products. So the reason why we kind of diversified, it was like a diversification, and then said, okay, why don't we participate in the educational publishing? Publish any title, including geography, including biology. Of course, we haven't, as a Christian publisher, we haven't wanted to leave out the Bible knowledge. We say, if no one can publish Bible knowledge, but we as claim, as a Christian publisher, we are going to publish Bible knowledge. So we do that, and we think we lead in that one, because the other publishers, well, few of them have published Bible knowledge. But the general educational materials we publish, the idea when we are in the boardrooms and we are answering questions from our directors, it's like some people believe that we were not supposed to participate in the publishing of educational materials, because they are saying you are migrating, you are shifting from your initial mandate of publishing Christian literature. Then why is it that you are publishing educational materials, which in some sense people believe are secular, So, but we are using that stronghold to support publishing of the Christian literature and to keep the prices of the Christian literature a bit lower. So I would say our experience as claim has been like that. But I would agree with the panelists here. I think we are fragmented. Like in Malawi, as far as I know, there are only 2 Christian publishers that are in the National Publishing Association. We, as GLEM, we are interdenominational. We stand for the Anglicans, we stand for the Presbyterians, and the Pentecostals somehow a bit. But the other arm, which is a Christian publisher, is totally for the Catholics. So one other house, publishing house and bookselling, is one that is owned by the Catholics. So for them, they just specialize on the Catholic literature.
Wow.
So yeah, that has been our experience in Malawi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John Yohane. I did get to visit John Yohane in Blantyre, where the claim is headquartered. And indeed, they do have a great influence in the country. Not only are they publishers, but also they have a chain of bookstores. I think the largest chain of bookstores in the country.
Yes.
And so there we have an example. I think we will need to have a session with you for all the Christian publishers here who would want to start exploring and thinking, especially like answering that question that Christo has. How do you navigate the high level of corruption that is involved in the tendering process within the educational publishing sector, even though therein we know that it holds 70% of the revenue from our nations. Okay, thank you so much for that contribution. We probably might consider, as Africa Speaks, to field a webinar exclusively to discuss that particular aspect. How can we be involved in educational publishing? And also, I hear you in terms of our own participation in national publishing associations, where some of the critical decisions are made and where some of us, I think, are absent. So there are many things that pass us by that we are not aware of. And reading on the report, you will find some very interesting initiatives and programs that you and I can participate as Christian publishers on the continent. In particular, one we mentioned about the Canex program. You can have a look at it. It is right there in the report. It is highlighted, the Canex Book Factory. So do check out in the report and see whether you could submit an application to be considered for that award. Any other question coming in for our panelists? This is now an open-ended session where you can either field your question by lifting up your hand or by putting it in the chat. Any other question before we come to almost closing our webinar today? Is there anything, Lily, you think that maybe you would have wanted to say as your closing remarks for our time together? Then we can enter into the last section.
Thank you, Kibuga. I was just going to say that you had a concern earlier. I don't know whether it was covered properly, the integrity of the data that we worked with. I don't know whether you'd still be interested for us to go quickly into that.
Oh, okay. You can. I think we have a few minutes. You can defend that a bit.
Yeah. What we wanted to say is that we were working with data that had already been collected by the ministries of education across Africa, 54 countries, which data we had to sift through in order to come up with the regional analysis, and of course now the final mapping of the African book industry. So the data was not very well represented, but we want to say that as we worked through the various stages, we had to form various peer groups and experts that we worked with very closely to like counter check on some of the data that had come through from those reports. You talked of, say, David Waweri working in Kenya. I know that Professor Kishindo worked in Malawi, in such like people. So we had to keep on going back and forth to ensure that whatever data we are working with, whatever data is being presented finally is something that is credible and that we can hold on to. So we had those levels, working with experts and working also with institutions that we work with books in Africa to just, like, for instance, WIPO, and African Publishers Network, to be able to ensure that whatever we are presenting is representative enough. Then, of course, finally, the report, once done, was reviewed by peer. I mean, it was there were people who are called peer reviews, who are drawn from across Africa, people who are well versed with the African book industry, who also made an input, final input, before the report was finally published. So I think to a large extent, the data presented there, the methodology that was used is fairly credible as could be, because we also relied heavily on desk reviews and current reports, especially by Hans Zell. You know, he has done a lot on African publishing, and he has been documenting African publishing for a very long time.
Alert.
So we did
out of it?
We did do due diligence, as it were, to ensure that the final product was as credible as can be. I thought perhaps I should mention that because I know it was one of the things that you are focusing on yesterday as we were preparing for this. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for giving us that assurance. I think it's very helpful to understand the research methodology and the diligence and accuracy of the report for all of us to make our decisions based on the report. I would like to ask you maybe one last more is on speaking to the reading culture. I know that's one of your passions. Tell us, where are we at as a continent from this report in terms of the reading culture?
Wow, that is such a critical area. Unfortunately, we don't present a very good picture in that. Both in the report, I don't think we said much about it. And yet, in my view, that's where most efforts must go moving forward. Because as I already pointed earlier, for any book to be written, it's assumed that there's going to be a reader. And as of course we know, people don't read much. And people don't read much for many reasons. One of which is that perhaps they don't have what they need to read. So we have a big challenge there in terms of promoting reading. First of all, we need to put policies in place to support reading. We have to start with our children. Do our children have school libraries? Are there public libraries that people can freely visit and access books that they need? Do we have reading associations? Because sometime in the 80s and I think early 90s, we had some very active reading associations in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and elsewhere. But these days, they seem to have died down. So we need to ensure that reading associations are instituted back, and we have people who are actually there promoting reading actively and working with publishers, booksellers, librarians to ensure that reading is discussed, the need for reading is discussed, and that many of us then begin to look at reading not as a boring, because sometimes it is described as if it is boring. Reading can hardly be boring. Reading is empowering. Reading gives us knowledge, gives us wisdom. And especially as Christians, we need to read. And unfortunately, reading as we know it, of course, is also changing, because now we are being told you can read ebooks, you can listen to books. And so we need to be very careful, because some of those options that are being presented may not be really good, especially for our children. Can a child really be relied upon to know how to read through ebooks, for instance, or through phones? We need to have printed materials that are readily available for our children and made accessible for them. And so for me, I think that's a big area. And for Christian publishers, we need to up our game and begin to see how do we work together with all these people in the book chain to ensure that reading is being talked about, reading is being emphasized, reading is actually happening in our homes, in our schools, perhaps even in our churches, because even our churches, perhaps we should be having libraries there. But do we? So I think for me, that's a really important area that you've brought up there. And yes, we state in the report that reading promotion is important, but I think practically on the ground, we need to just do something about it. And for me, that's why I said in my retirement, I'll go back to book selling. They say book selling is not lucrative, but I've survived for the last 4 years and I'm moving on. And for me, really, it's about all promoting reading that I started this bookshop. And I'm glad that somehow I've managed to keep afloat and moving on. And thanks, really, in a big way, to Christian materials, because most of my customers come looking for Christian materials. Believe me, you. So I think you people have an opportunity. You have an opportunity there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lily, for your time. BUMA KOR, anything extra? Your parting shot?
Yes, I really thank you all for giving us the opportunity to unveil this report. But as I said earlier, one of the emphases we should be really looking at is to work together to put in place policies, because without policies, we cannot do anything. And it is through the policies that we can have incentives, that we can prescribe incentives and urge governments to support publishing. And in fact, it is when we have policies that we can have publishing as a government undertaking, where government would be specifically involved in publishing. So I would encourage all our Christian publishers, booksellers, and so on to really work with others in each of their countries so that we can lobby, because from the Publishers Association, we can lobby government to put in place national book publishers and especially establish national book development centers, because the National Book Development Center caters for the aspects of publishing all across the board. So this is my last word, and I think we can all work together to achieve this as Christian publishers. One other thing I wanted to add, while we're talking about what certain things that Christian publishers reading the report can also take into consideration, is publishing in our local languages. We have talked much, we didn't talk so much about that in the report, but we mentioned it. Publishing in local languages is one aspect of our growth, which we have not been concentrating on. It's true that it's a smaller market, But I think Christian publishers, you know that when the missionaries came, they published in our local languages. Why is it that today we are running away? We want to only publish in English, we want to publish in French, and so on. So let Christian publishers also look at that possibility of publishing in our local languages, even though it's a small market, but it has an impact. It has an impact. That's why I think I would. I'm remembering now our brother, the Kenyan writer who refused to write in English, that Wationgo, who refused to write in English and started writing in Swahili. That was a paramount thing that he did. And foreign publishers were running after him to translate and publish in English. So please let us really take up publishing in the local language as local languages as some of our priorities, and that will help support the conclusions or the recommendations of this report.
Wow. Thank you for those remarks. Quite a number of things there that have been raised this evening for us and for our consideration here as Christian publishing professionals. Top on my list here is our consideration about educational publishing, taking note of the amount of percentage that it's taking in publishing on our continent, and why we should consider not only in terms of the revenues involved, but also in terms of the shaping of culture in our respective countries. The other one is consideration on our involvement in the national associations. How can we as Christian publishers be part of the wider ecosystem so that we are informed and we are aware of what's happening at the local roots? The other thing is to think about collaboration and synergy. And here I have good news for you because Africa Speaks is coalescing and bringing together different players on the continent of Africa to realize the kind of synergy that Lily is talking about, the desire for us to know one another, for the desire for us to know who is doing what where, and what would be our synergy points between each other, and even for us to consider cross-border and moving into other regions where we are not yet there at the moment. Issues of thinking about national reading surveys. I have seen in the report the opportunity for us to start thinking about how do we participate or even initiate and champion national reading surveys. And later on, we hope we could put together a webinar where we can bring together different initiatives started by believers and Christians in different countries and promoting a reading culture in the countries. I think that's something else that will be interesting. I saw a question from Shehu, and Shehu was raising the issues of digitalization.
Yes.
Sorry for my heavy tongue. As a major threat to book selling. I have seen quite a number of WhatsApp groups where people are fringing the copyright infringement, which is regrettable, and moving books across our WhatsApp groups. And I think that's a whole area we would like to have a conversation around. And how do we now united get to educate our own constituencies that is actually copyright infringement, and it is against the law. Not only it is against the law, it is also against the law, and we could talk about that. And also someone else was asking me and asking there in the questions, how can they be part of this? I think I'll be sharing a bit about what's already happening among the Christians that we could be part of. The image you're seeing there is the last consultation we had here in the city of Nairobi, bringing together 50 different publishing professionals. We were gathered from 22 countries in the month of March last year, and we had our second roundtable consultation where we were discussing issues concerning the publishing industry here on the continent. So I would like to say, yes, we are already starting to talk to one another. We are already starting to think about our own challenges, and there are quite a number of other publishers that were part of this consultation. Bogo, the next slide. So we have been in existence for the last 5 years as an international network of publishing professionals, and with a commitment to a flourishing Christian publishing industry. Our mission is to empower the African Christian publishing community by fostering collaboration, promoting excellence, and overcoming the industry challenges so that we can nurture faith, influence our societies, and we can shape culture across the continent of Africa. We have a website that I would like to encourage all of us to visit after this. And Bogo, you can paste that on the chat room. And this will help you to discover many things. And part of that website is a community forum. And we do have a community forum where you can see other players within the industry, and that helps you to really understand and know who are the other players within your own country or even other neighboring nations. And we hope that this will become a comprehensive database and a nexus point where all Christian publishers will have much of our data collected, and that we can willingly share it there just for knowledge building, and so that all of us could start having a place where now we all meet and where we all share information, share knowledge, share events, share training programs, so that this becomes your one-stop place where you can go and you can find everything Christian publishing on the continent of Africa. One of the other initiatives that we have had is that we are excited that in 2022, we did an Africa bookseller survey, which is more or less like this UNESCO report, but at a smaller scale within the Christian ecosystem. And we did it slightly differently because we made physical visits to the nations. So here are photos of me with different Christian publishing leaders. There is the Bible Society's bookshop in Goma. Another photo there with Lawrence Damaning in Ghana, Dr. Atwain Lutaisire from Rwanda, Sebaya from Ethiopia, House of Wisdom bookshop in Tanzania, and getting to speak to these different publishing professionals to understand, build relationships with them, visit their offices, and even for us to observe what's really happening in our different countries, and even for us to really understand that even as we serve you. Those are other photos from our visits to Harare, meeting with Peter Hammond in South Africa, meeting with Agnes in Lusaka, Zambia, where she was establishing a Christian publishing house. I think there are not more than 5 Christian publishing houses in Zambia at the moment. And so all these tours brought in quite a lot of information for us. And our goal was to visit 23 countries in total. So the ones in green are the ones we have already visited, did video interviews with a number of Christian publishers, and also did visits to the bookshops. The ones in blue are the ones that we are yet to complete. So we have completed much of the Anglophone Africa. And so we have a small portion that is remaining. Speaking to 80 booksellers, 25 publishers, we spoke to printers, and also spoke to authors. And all these video interviews were recorded, or about 40 minutes to about 1.5 hours. So it's also a whole wealth of knowledge and perspectives from different leaders across the continent. And so we will also get an opportunity maybe later on this year, and we will announce when the report gets out, so that now we can build up on what has already been done by UNESCO. So this is actually God's providence, that the UNESCO report came in to give us the entire groundwork that we can now build upon. So this is amazing how God works and how God saved us all the entire of work and labor we would have done, or probably would even have been impossible without a proper mapping. It would have been difficult for us to build upon it. So we are totally thankful to God and to you, Lily, and BUMA KOR and the rest of the team for all the labors of love you did to get us the base report, and that helps us now to build upon this. So we will invite you later on to come and now listen to the Christian ecosystem from the in-depth and what we will have learned from it. So do give us your email if you would like to know about that report when it comes out. And also do get to visit our website for you to become part of the community of Christian publishing professionals on the continent. Great. So we now are coming to the close of our time together. We are so thankful for our brethren, Lily and BUMA KOR, and for every one of you for showing up to this webinar. I had mentioned about Asroko before, which is our third initiative that we have had, the Africa Speaks Roundtable Consultation. Again, we will let you know when the next meeting will happen. After we did one last year, we will get to announce the next one, most likely in 2027. So I wish to bring our time together to a close. And say that we will continue to process the information we have received this evening. We are going to continue to read, and we hope that you can also share your questions with us, and we will share that with Lily and BUMA KOR so that we can keep this conversation going. Because I believe that most of us, I think, have not yet read the report. So this just excites us to take a deep, have a reading, and anything you find in there now helps us now to come back again and have a conversation with one another. The Lord Jesus Christ bless you for all your time together here. Unless there's anyone else with a comment, I wish to bring today's webinar to a close. Any question from us? Mbogwa, maybe you can share the links to our website, the phone number that you can text us to with. Our phone number that has a WhatsApp. Once you have that, then we could keep communication and conversation together. Great. Who do I see there to invite them to help us? Thank you so much, Sarah Wangari of David C. Cook. Let me ask Christo Butanje from Uganda. She's a chair of the Christian Writers Association that brings together Christian publishing professionals in Uganda. Christo, are you in a position to close us in prayer?
Yes, I am, though I'm not able to turn on my camera.
Wonderful. Go ahead.
All right. Let us pray. Please don't mind the children in the background. Yeah, let us pray. Father, we thank you so much for this session. that we have had, Father. We thank you so much, Father. We have seen, we testify about how you have let events unfold, oh Lord, that while Africa Speaks has been doing research and interviewing Christian publishers across Africa to create a viable and helpful knowledge database. UNESCO has done the same for the general publishing industry in Africa, Lord, and so much is aligning, Father. We thank you so much for the knowledge you are allowing us to access, even in the book of Proverbs, Lord. We are instructed to seek knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and we thank you, Lord, for helping us, Father, to access all this knowledge, to do this research and access it, Lord. Knowledge that is going to help us make wise decisions, which ultimately will help us to spread your gospel, Lord, to the rest of the world, Father, through the written word, through our literature. Lord, I pray, Father, that you continue to give us wisdom on how to use this knowledge, on how each publisher, each author, each bookseller, oh Lord, can use this knowledge to advance their business, but above all to advance your kingdom, Lord, to advance the spreading of your word and the gospel, Lord, in these last days, Father. Your gospel reaching the corners of the world through the written word is vital, Lord. I pray that this information will help each of the key players here on this platform, on this call, and even those who are not here, Lord, to make wise decisions, oh Lord. Father, I hope this information, I pray that this information will help us access funds, help us get wisdom on how to make more money and how to raise funds, oh Lord, for our businesses and to fund the spread of the gospel throughout Africa. Lord, I pray that you continue to guide and bless the people who have done this research. Bless Africa Speaks, oh Lord. Bless all Christian publishers all over Africa, those who are struggling, oh Lord, Father, and even those seeking to get into educational publishing, which we have seen is a big challenge. Christian publishers want to need a share of that money for the sake of the kingdom, Lord. But there's a challenge. There are very few Christian publishers in that sector, which is proving to be the most financially viable. Lord, we are just looking up to you for answers. We are looking up to you for solutions, and we trust and believe that all this is a first step to take us there, Lord. And we pray that as we continue doing all this, when we come and meet you in heaven, Lord, you look at each of us and say, well done, good and faithful servant, for our faithfulness in the publishing industry. We thank you, Lord, and we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Crystal. Allow me also to say that we are going to have a repeat of this presentation fully in French on 15th of July. 2 weeks from now, we are going to have a repeat of this fully in French. So if you have a friend who speaks French and who publishes in French, we are going to send out the information on our channels and email. We will have a fully French presentation of the same report and also share the French version of this report. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening, and God truly bless you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
And
Bye.
goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bless.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Koko Konako. Thank you, Galeswanthe. Todd Coupe. Thank you for coming.